Hello. I've been thinking, and it appears that there may be three levels of understanding, from the lowest to the highest level. The lowest level is memorization, and then learning, and then the highest level is wisdom. Every higher level involves the lower levels and more. And I and a lot of other people worry that high school doesn't do enough to teach the higher levels of learning, and only tends to teach just memorization, which is the lowest form of understanding. To understand this, let me give a brief summary of the three. Memorization is simply memorizing the facts and being able to regurgitate the facts upon proper stimuli. So, a very extreme case, computers do memorization, but there's such a low level of understanding that they don't understand what it is that they've memorized. So they know all the information on the internet, and when asked, they can give you any information. They don't know anything. That's the point about just memorization. When in practice for humans, memorization has the problem of low retention. In other words, you're not going to know the stuff longer than you need to know it to do the test. Or when it comes to anything which involves steps, memorization will only give you the ability to follow the steps. But if any problem arises that the steps can't handle, you're out of luck. So when it comes to studying for a test, the memorizer will study it like this. Well, I know this is a history test about the Declaration, so I'm just going to do this. The Declaration of Independence was signed 1776. The Declaration of Independence was signed 1776. And the memorizers will just say the relevant facts to the test over and over and over and over again. The problem is that they won't know the fact longer than they need to take the test. And if the test asks a question like, what is the significance of the signing, they'll probably end up reciting what the textbook said and end up failing because that's an inadequate answer. So yes, it's very low level. Now learning is the next level, and learning, you need to at least be at the learning level of understanding to do math, which is what's great about teaching math in high school is that the memorizers are not going to be able to do well in math, and they're going to have to step it up to learning at least. Learning is more than memorization. It's understanding why the facts are important, what the facts mean. The learning level of understanding is able to put all the facts into a context. So an important way to study enough to the learning level would be to put all the information into a narrative of some kind, or a chain, in some way put them in a way to where they're connected in a web, rather than disconnected facts to be said over and over and memorized. So when it comes to the history thing, it would probably be something like the Declaration of Independence was signed 1776, and this was kind of a big deal because it officially birthed the nation, and it was a big risk for the signers because they could have been killed, because what they were doing was kind of treasonous, according to the British Crown. That's why it was so big when they signed it in 1776. So you put it in a story, you can really learn it rather than memorize it. And if you do that, you'll be able to move beyond just the textbook and be able to give explanations and be able to talk about what happened. Yeah, a good way of figuring out whether or not you've memorized something or whether or not you've learned it, if all you've done is memorized it, then you won't be able to talk about it. That's why a good question when you're studying anything, not even just stuff for classes, but you're trying to train for a job, is you have to ask the question, if I had to explain this to someone, would I be able to? Would I be able to hold a casual conversation about it? And would my casual conversation be more than just reciting sentences out of a textbook? Would I be able to say, well, that signing of the Declaration is pretty neat. I wonder what other countries have done similar type stuff. And what kind of people would you have to, what kind of person would you have to be able to be so brave and that you would do that knowing that you could possibly get killed. Anyway, yeah. So you can, if you can hold a conversation about it, you've done more than memorize the topic. Yeah, and wisdom is the highest level of understanding a topic or something you're trying to understand. And wisdom is when you fully internalize the information. If you, and the higher level the understanding, the higher the retention. So if you've gotten to the wisdom level of understanding of something, you'll probably know it for life, or know it for several years. And at the wisdom level, you not only have learned the material, but you might even be able to add to the information. To get to this point, you would have to do a lot of research, extra research on the topic, and you'd be able to have a real opinion on it, and you'd be able to draw analogies from the information to other things. So you have a more full understanding of it. So yeah, I think this is very important to getting good grades in college. And if you want to understand higher levels of understanding things, I recommend studying math and or philosophy, because in order to do well or understand math and philosophy and programming too, is you have to be at that higher level of understanding. If you just do memorization, you're screwed. I've seen it. I've taken philosophy classes, so I have a BA in philosophy, so of course I've taken it. But anyway, even in a 100 level introductory course in philosophy, it's like a meaning of philosophy, just the introductory stuff. If you're just a memorizer, you're going to fail. You can't memorize philosophy. Very rarely is a philosophic question on the test going to be something like, his first name was Emmanuel. What's his second name? Like, you can't memorize. The questions are always going to be things like, what is the categorical imperative? Give me some examples of it in use. Like, it's going to be like page type questions, page long. So you can't memorize. You can't just rely on reciting the textbook. You have to get that higher level of understanding. So yeah. And to give a non-academic example of this, and I'll end after that, the mechanic. A mechanic who's just a memorizer will be able to follow the steps in a manual to fix the thing, but will fail and have massive problems if the steps are inadequate, because the memorizers don't have the problem-solving capabilities. They haven't developed critical thinking when it comes to their topic. So someone who's at the learned level of mechanics would be able to problem solve when the steps aren't enough. And the wisdom level mechanic would be someone whose problem solving abilities is enough to where they can handle almost any problem that comes their way with the thing they're fixing. And they'd likely be able to build things on their own depending on what mechanical field they're in. Or at least they're at the point where they could theoretically build devices in their field. So yeah, keep this in mind when you're trying to learn pretty much anything, not just school stuff, anything. Thank you.